Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and this is episode 117 for June the 1st, 2021. Wow, we're getting into the summer months here in Canada. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk about this. I finished it, Mrs. Slocomb's Pussies, and I'm going to talk about my other projects that I'm starting to work on, and one that I just finished that looks really cool. And we're going to talk about how to use a color wheel today, just briefly. And, well, a whole bunch of other things. But before we do anything, I want to get into showing you up close and personal Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy. Now, why I call it Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy is because there was an old BBC television sitcom that used to come on regular basis in the probably the early 80s, maybe even the late 70s, I don't know. I never saw it when it was on the air. I saw it many years later through different connections on the internet. And it was called Are You Being Served? And it was about a bunch of comical characters who worked in a department store. And there was one character, Mrs. Slocomb. She always had her hair colored in wild colors like bright pink or blue, and she was a very proper lady. I think she was an unmarried lady at the time, which was part of the humor, and she had a cat. And every show there would be some mention of Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy. So if you're a fan of that show, or if you know what I'm talking about, then you'll understand my reference in this to Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy. Now, the actual original design is called Risky Business. And I'm not even sure why they called it Risky Business. You know, it's got cats on it. I think if anything, if you want to do some form of a pun maybe on Risky Business, maybe call it Frisky Business. But they called it Risky Business, and I just renamed it when I got it done to Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my video and I'm going to just stop it briefly to take it off the stand and take it over and show you up close and personal Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy. That doesn't sound good. So here we are. This is the full view of it. I have a very awkward setup here for getting quilts into my videos, but anyways, you see the whole thing here. It's a small one. Not actually sure what it measures, probably about 36 inches square, in around there, 36, 38. And it's really more of a wall hanging than a quilt, although it could be a lap quilt. But this came as a kit that I bought some time ago at Ultimate Sewing. And it came with the fabrics that you needed for creating this. Well, the one problem with that was, I think they cut the fabrics up from whatever they had left in the store, and it did not match exactly what was in the pattern. So you had to kind of take the fabrics out and figure it out for yourself where they were going to go. And there was a lot of pink in there, so that's why my kitties are pink. Now, I am not a fan of the color pink, although on this particular project, I think it's suitable, the pink kitties. There was some applique in this as well. The eyes, let's move up a little closer here. The eyes and the nose and the bell and the collar were all applique, except that I decided to do the noses with buttons, and I put real bells. I don't know if it's going to ring or not. They're cheap bells that I had laying around, so I sewed those on by hand to the collar. And you know, even something as simple as sewing a bell on, I had problems with. There was blood, but that's me in hand sewing, I guess. But anyways, I just thought it would add a three-dimensional effect to this. Now, the eyes I did differently on each cat, just to give them a little bit of personality and a little bit of humor as well. So there's my so-called normal kitty. This is my sleepy kitty. This is my evil kitty. And this is my wonky kitty. So just for fun, there is a little appliqued mouse as well down here at the bottom. So there was a fair amount of applique in this. The tails had to be appliqued as well. And you did a little thread painting here to create the mouth and the whiskers on each kitty as well. So I followed the pattern with that exception, the way it was written, and then I did some free motion quilting on it, and I did stippling. And actually, I'm getting better at doing stippling. So practice does make perfect. And I did some wavy lines in this inner black border or sashing, whatever you want to call it, and some straight line. Now there is quilting in the wider border, the outside border. I just did walking foot serpentine on that, but I used such a light thread because I used the same color thread as I used in the background here. And I purposely picked a light thread because in case I made any major errors, it wasn't going to show up, you know, glaringly. So it just blends right in. I'm trying to see if I can get a close-up so you can see some of the quilting. There's some right there. Very difficult to see. The backing is this tulip pink fabric that I had laying around, and to be honest, I really didn't know what I was going to do with this fabric. When I saw it, I kind of liked it, but I thought because it had the pink, it would, you know, work with the rest of this quilt, and it does. So, and I keep calling it a quilt because it is a quilt, but I'm using it as a wall hanger right now, and I just think it's kind of fun and whimsical. And I wanted to do this project because I had just finished the Strong and Free quilt, and I needed something to clean my brain out. So I didn't want to start a real major project right after the other major project. So this one didn't take very long to create. It was kind of fun to make. So that's Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy. Now the other project I started on and got finished after I did Mrs. Slocomb's Pussy is this In Control, and yeah, okay, take it out of the bag. I should know this by now, but yeah, do I remember? Nope. And it's not much better. This is a pattern by Annie. It's the name of the company. She's famous for her bags, and apparently her instructions and everything are supposed to be very clearly written, very detailed and easy to follow. I have never done one of her bags before, so I saw this one and I thought I really want to give it a go. So I did, and yeah, it is true what they say. Patterns are very detailed and they're very easy to follow. Plus you can buy for about $5 an add-on video that, you know, takes you through the more difficult parts. And believe me, it's worth the $5 because there were a couple of parts of this project that were a little confusing, but I was able to figure it out when I saw the video. So here's the final product. And I think it turned out great. It didn't take me that long to make. I think I worked on it over a course of about 3 days, not full days. And you could knock one of these off probably in a day. You know, if you're well organized and put your nose to the grindstone kind of a thing. It was kind of fun to make. I am thinking of making a second one because when Walter saw this, he kind of wants one as well. So here's some of the features of the bag. You have these great carrying handles, and you also have these little handles on here as well. So if you had this sitting on a table or something, you want to move it from one side to the other, you can just pick it up by these little handles, which are actually made as part of the final binding of the edges, which was kind of interesting. I'd never done anything like that before. At first, when I read the instructions, and this is where the video came in really handy, I was a little confused as to what she was doing, but when I saw the video, I figured it out, and actually, it's very, very easy and very effective, I think. There are pockets on each side down in here, and on this size, and the pockets are various sizes as well. There's a pocket here on the end, and there's a zippered pocket on the other end. And it does work. I'll prove it. There you go. And of course, okay, this is awkward, but you get it. See, it opens, and that's really good. Inside, there are expandable pockets on each side, and they don't have bottoms in them. They're not sewn at the bottom. They're meant so you can put something like a bottle of spray. Let me grab something here and show you what I mean. So something like that, and they just sit on the bottom. And you can put in a bottle of water or whatever. In the bottom, there is a removable panel. That is a slip cover you make, and you put something like a piece of plastic or corrugated cardboard. I had a piece of chipboard, cut it to the right size, slipped it in there, and that just reinforces the bottom a little bit so things all stand up nicely. Not only that, but it's kind of nice with the slip cover, because if you spill something in the bottom of your bag, you can take that panel out, take the whatever you used as your stiffener, and just throw it in the wash. So that's kind of a nice feature as well. She really thinks about a lot of things about these bags when she designs them. It's a nice size. It's not huge, but you know, it'd work for carrying some of your frequently used sewing supplies, things that you take to maybe a retreat or to a class when we can do those again. If you're a crafter, the same kind of thing, you know, paint brushes, some paint, things like that. I think it's going to be very, very useful. And I could even put it here on my sewing table and load it up with some of my frequently used supplies as well for that. Although I already have another system here that I've gotten very used to, and so I don't know if I'm going to do that with this or not. But anyways, it was a bit of a challenge to make, but not that much. So, as I said, the instructions are very, very clear. You can pick up the instructions for this bag on buyannie.com. And I do have the link in the show notes below as well for you. Yeah, in fact, I'm so impressed with this bag that I made and the instructions that came with it that I have ordered another bag to make, which is a project bag, and it's going to utilize some of those things I bought and showed you a week ago on Pacana. I bought some vinyl, I bought some mesh, and I believe the project bag uses both of those products in it. So I have it on order, and I'm going to attempt to make it now that I've cut my teeth on this one. So, busy, Mrs. Slocomb's Pussies, and my In Control bag. That's the title of this one if you're interested. One thing about Annie's patterns, they're not expensive. Most of her patterns run about $10 US. The only problem is the shipping. I went on to buy Annie for this other one I'm mentioning that I want to do. And the pattern was only $9.95 US, but the shipping was $14.95 US. More than the pattern. And by the time you figure in the exchange between US dollars and the Canadian dollar, I thought, I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money on it, but I really want that pattern. So I sourced out a Canadian online store and found it there. And yeah, it was $13 for the pattern, in Canadian though. And believe it or not, the shipping was the same by Canada Post. It was $14. So I just bit the bullet and said, okay, fine, I want that pattern. So, you know, it's costing me almost $30 between shipping and the pattern cost itself just to get the pattern. But I've got it ordered, so c'est la vie. Okay, so those are the two projects that I have finished in the last week, and I have started some other things. So today is June the 1st, and that marks the beginning here in Canada and pretty much across North America, the start of LGBTQ month, or Pride Month, as we like to call it. And I thought I should have some form of decoration for my front door in my house to show that I'm out and proud. Like, big surprise, really. But anything with rainbow colors is always attractive, I think. And so I've started working on this banner. So I'll just hold it up here. Here's what I've got so far. So it is the Pride flag, and it is a maple leaf with the Pride colors in it. And there will be, trying to hold it up here, it's fairly long. It's about, probably about 36 inches long, approximately. There will be a row of these maple leaves across the top and at the bottom, and then I'll layer it, I will quilt it, and I'll bind it, and it will go on my front door. And I want to get this done within the next couple of days. Now, these maple leaves that are on here are all embroidered. And I found a pattern. Actually, I found a new site I'd never heard of, and I think they're located in Newfoundland. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. And if I think about it, I'll try to put it in the show notes below for you. And these were on sale. This design, I think it was actually part of a little larger design, but I eliminated using Artistic Digitizer the extra elements that I didn't really want. I think this was inside a big heart, and it was sort of an applique, and I just wanted this. And so that's what I've done, is I've sewn it all out on long strips of fabric and put the fabrics or the strips together to make this long piece, and then I'm going today do the short pieces as well on the top. But I think it's going to look good on the door. I'm not sure how I will quilt it. I may just do some more stippling because I need more practice in my free motion, and that's a good one to practice on, and that would look okay on there. The only question is, what color thread do I want to use on something like this? You know, I do want the quilting on this to stand out a little bit, but I'm not sure what color I should use. Maybe a pink or maybe a black. I don't know. We'll see. Of course, I don't want it to take over either from the design. So that's what I'm working on right now. And while those maple leaves were being stitched out, and they take a little bit of time, I got playing around with scraps. Now I have a little scrap bucket that sits on my cutting table, and I throw my scraps in there, and at the end of a project I'll go through it and sort out the scraps. Well, I thought, why don't I sew them all together just for fun and use some of my decorative stitches? So I created this. Now this isn't quite finished, I haven't got it all done, but I've used various decorative stitches on it, and I have some stabilizer on the back of it as well, tear away. Most of it will not tear away though, because it's so dense with the stitching. And I keep falling off my stool. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I may not go any further with it. I don't know. It was just something to play around with when I didn't want to start another major project right immediately while I was concentrating on the Pride banner. I am thinking, well, originally I thought, well, I could make this into part of a crazy patch quilt. And I've got some orphan blocks and things like that that I could probably use with this. And it would just be a wacky looking, it might be a wall hanging, it might be a small lap quilt, something like that. I could take this and cut this up into maybe 4 squares and incorporate it into a project like what I just mentioned. It could be a table runner. I don't know. I don't know yet. Or it may never get any further than this. It's a mystery. Yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know if I ever get it done. Okay, so that's some projects I've been working on. I told you that I'd ordered some things. I think I mentioned it last week from Monfil, just basic supplies. I needed some basting sprays and a few other little things, some wonder clips. But one of the things that I did get from them, which I'm curious about, and I had to do some research, is this is called Aquafilm Badge Master. It's basically a vinyl or plastic, and by the name it suggests to me that if you want to make badges on your embroidery machine, this is the stuff you use. Now that's all I know. I have to do some research and figure this out to see how this works. This is water soluble as well. So yeah, I have to do some research. I've never made badges before. I've thought about it, but now I've got this stuff, so I'm going to try it out. And this was not expensive. This was about $6 or something, and you got 30 inches by 72 inches. So that's a fair amount of this stuff. They make a lot of badges. So we'll see. So that's another project to play with. All right. So that takes us to this week's demo. Now, there's all these things about color theory. And yeah, I think it would be very good for people to know something about color, about, you know, getting the right color combinations in your quilts and things like that. And I know many people struggle with picking out fabrics and their colors. I'm not one of those people. I don't get all uptight about that. You know, my method, and it's not unique to me, I'm pretty sure, is I find a fabric and a pattern that I really like. And what I do is I look at the colors that are in that fabric. And if that's going to be my focal fabric, then from that I pick out my other colors to go with it. I don't think that's complicated. For example, on this bag, if I was using these butterflies as my focal fabric, then look at the amount of colors I could get out of this. I could use some blues, I could use some pinks, some yellows, some oranges, some reds, some greens, all in there. It would be very easy to go to this as my focal fabric and pick out my colors to complement it. But for some reason, many people are not comfortable doing that kind of color matching. And when I've been in the quilt stores, when we could go into the quilt stores, I saw a lot of people struggling with trying to pick out the fabric they wanted for their quilt. I just walk in and then go, yeah, that one I like, and I'll do this one, this one, this one, this one. I don't think I'm special about that. Maybe that comes from my background as a crafter and a mixed media person. I don't know. But a lot of professionals, if you will, suggest that one use a color wheel if they're struggling. Well, it's an aid. It will help. Now, right now, I am not going to explain all the finer points about using a color wheel and all the terminology that goes with all the different groupings of colors. You know, what do they call them? Complementary and secondary and tertiary, and the warm and the cool and the hue and the value and the intensity. This gets very, very complicated. Now, I actually designed a course about using the color wheel with those terms many, many years ago when I was doing scrapbooking. My local scrapbooking store asked me to put together a course, and I did. And I think it was pretty much a disaster when I put it together, to be honest. It was very confusing. I tried to simplify it, and the more you get into color theory, the more complicated it gets. So I'm not going to talk about it from that point of view. I'm going to talk about how you can use a color wheel to help you out. Very simple. Color wheels come in different designs. This is one by, I think they're called Color, what are they called? Color something. I have the link to them in the show notes. The Color Wheel Company. You can go online and you can pick from various styles. This is one that I've had. I did not buy this one specifically to use with quilting fabric, but you don't need one for quilting fabric. You can get them. I don't really know what the difference is. I guess they might be a little bit more simplified. But this one does what I need it to do when I use it, and I very seldom use it. Basically, you have the colors of the rainbow on the outside. You usually have a dial. You take the dial and you line it up. So if I wanted to use, this one says adding colors. So I turn the wheel right here to the blue. This is the inner wheel. And I match it up with, say, orange on the outer wheel. And this shows me in this little window here what color I would get if I mix those two together. And so basically what I get is you add blue to orange, you get something that's closer to a sort of a mauve or a purple. So, you know, you can see that for mixing colors. With fabric, I don't know if that would work as well. This is more like if you used paint and you're trying to make a custom color. But what it does show you is if you want complementary colors, you go across the wheel. Draw a straight line from one color on one side of the wheel to a color on the opposite side. And so Red, for example, its complementary color is green. So you see here, red at the top, green down here. Complementary color to orange is blue. Complementary color to yellow is a blue-violet. And now this one subdivides the rainbow colors on the outside into, things like yellow, green, blue, violet, that kind of thing. But that's a really quick way to find complementary colors if you're struggling with that. But if you also want to do something in more of a monochromatic kind of effect, then you look at the colors beside the main color. So let's say my main color was blue. So I look at the colors next to it on either side on the color wheel. Well, next to blue is blue, violet, and violet, blue, green, and green. So that gives me more choices. And, I can rest assured, because it's color theory, that those colors will work. And I can mix it up. I can go to secondary colors. Now, to find a secondary color, and a secondary color is like, it's made up of mixing the primary colors. Primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. And from those three colors, when you mix other colors into those, or you mix those colors together, you will get a secondary color. So, for example, if I mix blue with red, let me see here. Let me find it on my wheel. Use the wheel. If I mix blue with red, I will get orange. Will I get orange? Sorry, I get purple. I get purple. Oops, use the wheel. And that's actually what the wheel said. I took this inner wheel, moved it over to the red, said adding blue, and in the little window is purple. So that helps. And there are other combinations you can fool around with, and some very complicated color combinations as well. So a color wheel will help you figure that out. Now, on the back of this particular color wheel, there's another source of information. And this is different shades and tints. So in blue, you can see there's these different variations. So again, if you had this with you, and they make them small enough that you can throw into your pocket or into a purse or something like that. You're in the store. You could hold this up against some of your fabrics and see just how well they will work together. So you could play with this for hours for figuring out color combinations. As I said, I go to the color wheel when I'm looking for something a little different. If I want to get outside of the box, I'll go to the color wheel for that. But generally speaking, I don't use one. But if you're interested in finding out more about color theory, then you can go onto the internet and put in color theory, and you will find quick little courses or very detailed courses you can take. Go on YouTube. There's all kinds of free tutorials about using the color wheel. And that's another reason why I wasn't going to get into it in depth here. But it is a resource that if you struggle with figuring out color fabrics or fabrics you want to use in a particular color scheme, or if you just want something new and different to break out of, what you always use. Like for me, I'm always using blues. So I might go to the color wheel to look into the spectrum of, say, something I don't use a lot, like orange. I'm not a fan of orange either, but that would help. So it's a tool that I think you should have one, and they're cheap. You can buy them at any art store, get them online. I've got a link to the company that makes this particular one, but they're in all kinds of different designs. So anyways, that's all I'm going to say about color theory today, because as I said, color theory is something that, well, people go to university and study it in university courses. Artists do that kind of thing. So it can be very involved. But don't let it intimidate you. Get yourself a color wheel, a simple one. Simpler the better, and away you go. Okay, so that takes us to Subscribers Quilt of the Week, and this is by Karen Webster. So let's sit back and enjoy Karen's creations. This week's quilt comes from Karen Webster, and she writes, I would like to share 2 projects for your Idiot Quilter Show and Tell. I embroidered the magnolia design on black fabric. Well, I either used the wrong stabilizer or not enough stabilizer because the fabric was really wrinkled when it finished. I believe I said something like crap. To save the design, I decided to cut it out very carefully. Then I created the mixed media art piece that you see. It is one of my favorites. The glasses quilt turned out so cool. The applique glasses, rented lips here, are a Sarah Vedler design. Not sure if I'm saying that name right. And the embroidered eyes are from Creations by Kara. I colored the eyes and the eyeshadow with Inktense watercolor pencils. Then I added lots of glitter and sparkly bling. The quilt is 6 feet wide, so like you, I struggle for wall space, so I have it hanging as a valance above a window in my great room. Well, that's a neat idea. First thing you see when you come into the house. Love it. I found the fun quote on Pinterest and used fusible glitter vinyl, cutting it out on my silhouette cameo. Well, both projects are really beautiful. I love the eye and the detail that's in it, and coloring it with Inktense inks. That's a really interesting idea. I have not tried that, so I must. So thank you, Karen, for sending us these creations. They're beautiful. And as always, if you would like some of your creations to be featured here on the Idiot Quilter, please send me a couple of pictures and a brief blurb about your creation, and I will feature you here on the Idiot Quilter. Also, I am attempting to put in a new segment where I interview you, and you, and you, and you, all of you. I'm not looking to do interviews with people who are acclaimed experts in the field of quilting or in crafting. I am looking for people like me, just the average quilter who does this for fun. What will happen is, if you're interested in being interviewed, and it's non-threatening, I won't make fun of you or give you tricky questions. In fact, if you send me an email and say, yes, you are interested, I will send you back a series of questions as a guide to our discussion. We'll conduct the interview via Zoom, and I will also send you the Zoom link. We will discuss a mutual time that's convenient for both of us, and away we'll go. Now, I'm going to do my first interview in the next couple of days. So I have a victim, I had a volunteer who has graciously said she would like to do this, and I'm looking forward to it, and we will do it, and you may see it next week or the week after, and that will be my testing ground to see how this goes, but I don't anticipate there'll be any problems. So don't be shy. I would love to have you on here for an interview. Show the world that there are lots of us out there that do this for fun. We're not experts. We don't make perfect things all the time. We do idiot moves. I know, look at me. And yeah, I think it makes things just a little more real than watching all these so-called experts doing everything that's absolutely perfect and, you know, making the rest of us feel bad. So if you're interested, my email address is below. Drop me a line. Okay, you'll also find Craft and Chat. Yes, this is June the 1st, and that means the first Wednesday of the month we do Craft and Chat. For those of you that might be new here, Craft and Chat, what is it? It is a Zoom get-together where we do exactly what it says. We craft and we chat. It's non-threatening. There's no drama. They're a friendly group of people. I have some regulars that usually come out every month for that, but more the merrier. We are not a huge group. I think last time was our record-breaking number. We had 12 of us, I think, in total, 10 or 12. It's a pleasant 3 hours. We start at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we finish up at about 4 p.m. First Wednesday, so tomorrow's the first Wednesday, June the 2nd, 2021. So the link to the Zoom is in the show notes, and all you need to do is click on it. You do not have to pre-register or anything like that. I have a waiting room set up. When you come on, it'll take me a couple of seconds to admit you into the group, but then you're in and away we go. If you're not right on time, it doesn't matter. It's sort of like a drop-in. So come when you can. And if you can't stay for the full thing, that's fine too. You can leave whenever you want to. What are we working on? Anything we want to. It could be quilting, it could be a sewing project, it could be a mixed media project, or some other kind of craft, knitting, crocheting, you name it, whatever. We're working on it. And as we work on things, we talk. And just whatever comes up. And usually I glean a lot of interesting information as we're working. And it's just very relaxing, and that's what it's meant to be, and fun. So if you'd like to join us, consider this your official invitation. Click on the link below tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, June the 2nd, and you're in. So I hope to see you there then. Okay, there is a link in the show notes for last week's So Chatty episode, which we talked all about rulers. And there is a link for the pattern I'm about to talk to you about. This comes from my vision board. There is a link for the company that makes these. And there's also a link to a explanation of how to use the color wheel for quilters that I found. That is very, very informative. So you might want to check that out as well. There's also a link to YouTube channel where I'm going to talk about in a moment, and to the sewing or the quilting store, online store of the week. So let's move right into the YouTube of the week, and that is something called We Quilt Studios. Now, it has lots of videos about techniques and things you may need to know about your sewing machine settings. Okay, so this is what makes this YouTube channel a little bit different. Yes, they talk about sewing techniques, but they also focus on some generic things that apply to most sewing machines that you should know. You know, things like tension settings, or cleaning your machine, or needle selection, that kind of thing. And fixes. You know, you don't always need to take your sewing machine to a technician and pay money to have your sewing machine fixed. If it's something simple, well, this website's going to, or YouTube channel is going to help you with that as well. They do have a description about what they're about, and I'll just read that description to you. It says, embroidery/sewing video tutorials. We use mbird embroidery software. In addition, emphasis will be on how to use these machines. The Cricut Maker cutting machine, that's good to know. The Brother SE400, SE425, SE600, SE625, the Janome MB4, MB4S, MB7, and a long arm quilting machine. So they do focus on embroidery as well as sewing. So if you've just got yourself, excuse me, frog in my throat. If you've just gotten yourself an embroidery machine, and even though you may not have one of the models they focus on, there are many things that are common across all embroidery machine makes. So you will probably glean some very interesting information from this YouTube channel. So that's We Quilt Studio. I have the link in the show notes. So that now takes us to what's on my vision board. And this is a pattern. Let me get it out of the plastic bag first. That is a free pattern that comes from Jordan Fabrics. You've heard me talk about them many times, and most people know who they are because their tutorial videos on YouTube are excellent, and they have a lot of free patterns. Plus, you can buy things from them as well. But I saw this one some time ago called the Hexagon Kaleidoscope. And it is hexes, but on this one, it's the way you piece them. This is not English paper piecing for this pattern. Now, what really attracted me to this was the colors that they used, and it basically looks very Christmassy, and that's why I pulled it out, because I'm thinking this might be this year's Christmas quilt. I have a lot of Christmas fabrics that have been left over from last year and the year before, and this might be a good way to use them up. Now, this particular pattern, it does use yardage, But once I look at it in a little bit more detail, I think that I can probably use, you know, bits and pieces, because you see, you're basically cutting triangles. Now, do you have to use Y-seams on this? No, this pattern doesn't have Y-seams either. I know when you see triangles, oftentimes you think, uh-oh, Y-seams. And that seems to be a scary proposition for most quilters. But no, the way this is designed is it's done in straight lines. They show you here as well. So you put it together row by row. So it looks like it's a fairly simple pattern, and yet it gives you a very interesting effect. So that's one I'm saving to do when I get closer to starting some Christmas projects. So as I said, it's called the Hexagon Kaleidoscope. It is a free pattern from Jordan Fabrics, and I have a link to that pattern in the show notes if you're interested in picking one up for yourself. I'm a great believer in free patterns. I have a lot of them. Doesn't mean I don't buy patterns. I do. But, you know, if you can get it for free, why not? Okay, so that takes me to the quilt from my collection that I want to critique. This is one of my early endeavors. When I first got into quilting a couple of years ago, probably about 3 years ago now, hard to believe time's flying. Actually, it may be moving towards 4. We had just repainted, and when I say we, I mean Walter, had just finished repainting our master bedroom. And I wanted to do something different on the walls. I had some crapo paintings on the wall. They weren't really, you know, they were starving artist type paintings. And I wanted to replace them with some wall hangings. So I went into my scrap pile and I created what you're about to see now. So I'll show that to you. This week's quilt of my own that I'm going to critique, I simply call Blue and Purple Wall Hanging. And the reason I call it that is because basically that's what I made it for. We had repainted our bedroom and I wanted to put up some new things on the walls. I had some old pictures there before, but I thought, you know, let's spruce it up with something else. And for this one particular part of the wall, which stands above the tall boy dresser, I had absolutely nothing there, and the space was crying out for something to fill it. So I went into my scrap bag of batiks and I created this. Now, this was my own design and it's very, very simple. As you can see, it basically is just made up, I think, of 4-inch squares, and some of those squares are half square triangles, and I just laid them out and put the colors together to give these diagonal stripes in it. Now, I did quilt it, and I quilted it just using a simple serpentine stitch using my walking foot. And even though this was very, very simple, if you look very closely in the center near the bottom of this little wall hanging, you will find a tuck. Now, the tuck is not huge, and when you see it actually on the wall, you won't really notice it. This picture kind of picks it up. But, you know, it was in the early stages of quilting, and I didn't know a heck of a lot, and so I was making tucks. And don't look too close at the binding, because the binding is not really sewn close enough to the quilt. The edge is curling up a little bit, and my corners are not perfectly mitered either. So again, these are all mistakes that I made as a new quilter. But I was experimenting with home decor and using what I did know at the time about quilting and trying to use up some scraps as well. So I was very pleased at that point in time with the way it turned out, and I'm still not disappointed with it because it still sits on the wall, hangs on the wall in my bedroom, and it goes with the decor. And yeah, it's a simple project, but I learned something from it and I still like it. So although there's flaws in that, it still hangs on my wall, and it's a nice little element. Okay, so that now takes us to the online fabric store of the week. Now, right off the bat, I'll tell you I have never ordered anything from this particular company, but I may in the future. So what I am basing my review on is I'm basing it on their website, on the way it's presented and what they say on there. So it's called KTR Sewing, and they're located in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's in Manitoba, Canada. And their fabric selection is fairly good. There seemed to be a good variety, and their prices didn't seem bad. I had to look at it twice because it started at about $8 per yard. And that was for, basics like blenders, solids, things like that. And it moved up from there. But at first, I thought, wait, that's got to be $8 for a half yard. But it wasn't. So prices are fairly good. They do have, though I look at their pre-cuts because I like pre-cuts, and they had a very limited selection from what I could see on their website of pre-cuts. But their yardage is pretty good. Now, yardage. I do have a bone to pick with this. Yardage. We are in Canada. We're on the metric system. Let's call it what it really is. Meterage. Meters. Because I always feel I'm getting gypped when I'm buying it by the yard in Canada. Because a yard is about 36 inches. A meter is 39. A little thing, I know, but if you're a Canadian store, then let's deal in Canadian dollars and let's deal in Canadian measurements. Just a little criticism. Do they have sewing machines? Yes, they do. They carry both Janome and Baby Lock. And Baby Lock dealers in Canada are a little bit more rare than they are in the United States. They also have some used machines that gently used, they called them, which is an option as well. Now, the only thing about buying a sewing machine online is I would think shipping might cost you quite a bit. Also, I wouldn't want to buy a sewing machine online. I'd like to go to a dealer that is local to me in case I need servicing. What do you do if you need servicing of a machine that you've bought a province away or something like that? I don't know, but they are available. And they also sell parts for these machines, and they sell sewing cabinets. Now again, if you were to buy a sewing cabinet from them and you don't live like within driving distance to their shop, I think shipping would cost you quite a bit, but they're available. And they also had something really interesting I haven't seen on other sites that I have reviewed. They have manuals for the various sewing machines and models that you can purchase. They look like they averaged about $20. I'm assuming they're a PDF format, so you would download them. So if you've lost a manual for a sewing machine, or you've picked up a used sewing machine and you don't have a manual for it, this might be a good source for that. Now, having said that, if you spend a little time and do some research online, you can probably find a free manual for your particular sewing machine. And oftentimes you can download a free copy of the manual from the company itself. So you can go to Janome, you can go to Baby Lock, and you can probably download a manual for your particular model there. But it's good to know that they also offer manuals. So, if you don't want to do the search, go here if you're willing to spend the $20. As far as notions are concerned, they had a fairly good selection of things, the usual stuff you would expect, scissors and needles and rulers and templates and things like that. And the prices there were, what you would expect. They're the average price of those kind of items. They do have a good selection of patterns, but they're somewhat limited in kits as well. Now, their thread. They have a variety of sewing and embroidery threads. They had the more popular brands, although they did have some brands that I'd never heard of before. Their prices range from $8 and up. Now, some brands I found were very expensive, like King Tut thread. I have some King Tut thread. It's great thread. But they wanted $37 for a spool of King Tut. Now, I don't know. I kind of looked at it and tried to figure out whether this was a specialty item or something like that, and I really could not tell. I think it was variegated, But yeah, I've got some variegated King Tut, and I didn't spend $37 for a spool of it. And it looked like it had the average amount of thread on it. It wasn't like a big cone or something like that. So that makes me really wonder, why is that $37? So not the place I would be going to buy King Tut thread. I can tell you that at that price. They don't have any classes right now, but it looks like they may have had classes in pre-COVID days, but there wasn't really any details about what they'd had in the past. They do have a limited selection of embroidery files, very limited selection, but they did have hoops for your embroidery machines. They had hoops for Janome, they had hoops for Baby Lock on there. So, you know, if you need a hoop or you've broken a hoop or something like that, this might be a good outlet for picking them up. I did not really examine the prices on the hoops, and to be honest, I have no idea what I could compare that to because I've never had to buy an extra hoop for my machine. They also sold some books as well, but most of these online quilting stores do. They have books. And you know, quite honestly, I don't buy books anymore. I can usually find what I need to know or what I want to look at online. And if I was to buy a book, I would look for a downloadable e-reader or PDF form of the book. Yeah, in this day and age of electronics, you know, I know some people like to have a physical library of their books, and that's great. I was that way at one point in time too, but now I'm all about electronic form. Now there's shipping. They have free shipping over $100, and that's in Canadian. Otherwise, whatever the going postal price is for anything under that. But they also charge, and this I found really unusual. I've never seen this on a website ever, anywhere before. They also charge $3 for packing materials. So bubble wrap or the paper that they'll put in to keep stuff from shifting around in the box when they ship it to you. They charge $3 for that. Now, that gives me an idea of attitude. Are you nickel and diming your people that are ordering from you online? $3 for packing material. Really? Why not? Now, okay, another way to look at it is they're being very transparent. Maybe other companies work that into their prices or their price of shipping. Maybe. I don't know. And this company's just saying up front, you know, no, we charge for the packing materials. But so there's two ways to look at it. Either, you know, they're being upfront and transparent, or they're nickel and diming you. Either way, I found that very unusual. So as I've said, I have never ordered anything from this company. Maybe if you live out in the Winnipeg area or something, you can drop me a note and let me know if you've had any experience with this company. They do have a physical store, apparently, and it sounds like it's really big, 4,000 square feet. And I think they had some pictures of the inside of it too on their website. So I mean, if I'm ever in Winnipeg, I would definitely drop in to check out their store. So anyways, that's the store of the week, KTR Sewing in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Okay, so we're coming pretty much to the end of today's episode. And I just want to mention again that I'm thinking of having what I'm now going to call the Birthday Sewing Bash. It's my birthday in July, and I want to celebrate it by having a online sewing bash, a Zoom kind of thing. Kind of like on the level of Craft and Chat, except I'm hoping it will be bigger. It'll be sort of designed around what I did with the Idiot Quilter Quilting Retreat, but not on that large a scale. You do not have to pre-register for it. It will be on July the 10th. I've had a few people write to me and tell me that they're interested. I would like to hear from a few others that you are interested. This is not a commitment. It's just letting me know that you're thinking, yeah, this might be fun. I'm hoping when we get closer to the date that, yeah, I can do that. Just so I know. And if I get a fairly large response, then although I said I'm not having any prizes or special guest speakers and that, I am thinking about a couple of maybe something simple but special that I can do that day. My idea is it will be on July the 10th, which is a Saturday, and it would start at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and run until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I know for some of you out in the West Coast, that means you'd either have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or join us a little later in the day. And that'll be fine because it's a drop-in kind of a thing. Stay for as long as you want. All day, part of the day, half a day, whatever. So, yeah. Right now, I have some more ideas about this, but they're up here. Maybe not the best place for them because I have a tendency to forget. But as I draw closer to that date, I will formalize things a little bit more, and I will let you know what I have planned. But just keep that date open if you're interested. July 10th. It's my birthday. That's not actually the day of my birthday. My birthday is actually 4 days after that date. But I'm going to pretend. Yeah, it is going to be all about me. Okay, so that's enough right now. I'm getting a little punchy. So I hope you have a good week. We'll see you next week. So Chatty will come out later in the week. My vlog is already up. And of course, Stephen and Walter live on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So lots coming up. Thanks for joining me. Your support is always welcome. And if I didn't have you as an audience, I wouldn't be doing this. So yeah, have a good week. Go out, create something beautiful, relax, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.